Today we will have a discussion on gene transcription. Gene transcription is the first step of gene expression. So what is expression of a gene? You know that the proteins which are formed inside the cells are actually products of genes, or the information required for the synthesis of proteins are recorded in the genes. So there are different steps by which the protein product is formed corresponding to the information recorded in a gene. So that is called as gene expression. And there are two main steps in gene expression. They are transcription and translation. So today we will discuss about the first step of gene expression, that is transcription. So before going to the steps in transcription, we will have a look on the central dogma of molecular biology. So it is a concept that gene expression involves a unidirectional flow of information from DNA to RNA to protein. So it takes place inside the cell. So it's an intrinsic unidirectional flow of information from the gene or from the DNA to protein through an RNA, through an mRNA. So that is what is called as the central dogma of molecular biology. So in the first step, this DNA is self-perpetuating. That means the DNA, it replicates. Before every cell division, the DNA or the genome inside the cell will undergo replication. So it is self-perpetuating. And at the time of protein synthesis, what happens is that first the information coded in the DNA is being copied onto another new RNA, which is called as the mRNA or the messenger RNA. From DNA, transcription can also undergo to form tRNA as well as rRNA, but here we are focusing on protein synthesis. So from the information coded in the DNA, information is copied onto an mRNA. And that step is called as transcription. Now, the information coded on the mRNA is now used as a recipe for incorporating nucleotides to form the required protein, because for the formation of a structurally and functionally perfect protein, the amino acid sequences or the sequences in which we add the amino acids for the formation of the initial polypeptide should be very precise. And this information or the recipe is there in this mRNA. So, looking at the information recorded in the mRNA, amino acids are joined in a perfect way, or amino acids are joined sequentially to form the polypeptide, which is later attaining its secondary, tertiary and quaternary structure to form the functional and the structural protein. So, this is what the central dogma of molecular biology says, that the information flow in a cell is always from DNA to RNA to protein. But there is an exception for this phenomenon, that is in retroviruses. There has been mechanism discovered by Temin and Baltimore, and they discovered that the only entity in which there is reverse flow of information are the retroviruses. Retroviruses are capable of synthesizing new DNA molecules complementary to an RNA template by the help of an enzyme known as reverse transcriptase. So it is the only instance where there is a reversal of the central dogma of molecular biology, and that is called as reverse transcription. So however, we confine our study to transcription, and later we move on to translation. So in transcription, the information coded in the DNA is being copied onto an mRNA. So we can consider this transcription to be a DNA dependent RNA synthesis, because the information is there in the DNA which acts as a template, and the information is being copied onto the RNA. So it is DNA dependent RNA synthesis, and this is accomplished by an enzyme which is called as DNA dependent RNA polymerase. So the RNA polymerase catalyzes the formation of a new RNA complementary to one of the DNA strands. So here comes another important point, that is the RNA is single-stranded, whereas the DNA molecule is double-stranded. So when the RNA is synthesized, it will be complementary to only one of the DNA strands, and that DNA strand is called as the template strand. So it is complementary to the DNA template strand that an RNA is produced, and this reaction is catalyzed by the enzyme which is called as RNA polymerase. And second thing is that for the synthesis of RNA complementary to the DNA strand, there is one more necessity, that is the double stranded DNA has to unwind. Then only one of these strands can act as a template. So that is also a prior requirement before transcription. So one of the strands of DNA will only act as the template. Now, the two strands of DNA can be given names. One is called as the template strand and the other is called as the non-template strand. The template strand, it is complementary to the template strand that mRNAs produce, or the cell uses this strand as the template for producing mRNA, which is later used for the synthesis of the protein. So that is why it is called as the template strand. The other strand is called as the non-template strand. Now they have got other names also, because this non-template strand, it is also called the coding strand or the sense strand. What is the reason? It is because RNA is being synthesized, the mRNA is being synthesized complementary to the template strand. So the sequence of the mRNA will be same as that of the non-template strand. So non-template strand is that DNA strand whose base sequence corresponds to the base sequence of the mRNA transcript produced. The only difference is that instead of thymine in DNA, it will be uracil in RNA. So that is why the non-template is also called as the coding strand or the sense strand, because it carries the same sequence as that of the mRNA. The template strand is also called as non-coding or anti-sense strand because its sequence is complementary to that of the mRNA. The sequence is different from that of the mRNA produced. It is only complementary. It is not the same as the mRNA produced. So these are the terminologies used for the two DNA strands. The template strand is also called as the non-coding or the anti-sense strand, and the non-template strand is called as the coding or the sense strand because it carries the same nucleotide sequence as that of the mRNA, the only exception being thymine, which is replaced by uracil in mRNA. Now we go to another term which is called as transcriptome. Transcriptome is a unit of DNA which undergoes transcription. So that is why it is called as the transcriptome. So transcriptome contains two types of regions. There will be coding regions and non-coding regions. And before going to the coding and non-coding regions, we have to see the functionally different regions in a transcriptome. In prokaryotes, the four functional regions in a transcriptome are: first one is the promoter, second one is the operator, third one is the cistronic region or the structural genes, and fourth one is the terminator region. So they are the promoter, operator, cistronic region and terminator region. In eukaryotes, we use another terminology, that is promoter is the same. Instead of operator, we name it as acceptor or regulator. Then third region is the cistronic region where there are the structural genes, and fourth one is the terminator region where the transcription stops. So these are the four regions: promoter, same for both eukaryotes and prokaryotes. Then operator for a prokaryote, or acceptor or regulator for a eukaryote. Then the cistronic regions where the structural genes are there, and the terminator region. So what are the functions of these regions? The promoter region, it will provide the recognition signal to initiate transcription. So transcription is being initiated in the promoter region. We know that the enzyme which catalyzes this reaction is the RNA polymerase. So it is to the promoter region that the RNA polymerase will first come and bind. So promoter is the site where a transcription process as such is initiated. Then the second region is called as the acceptor. In the case of prokaryotes, it is called as the operator. It is that site where the regulators will come and bind. It is a regulator which will decide the fate of transcription, whether transcription should occur or not, is being determined by certain proteins which are called as regulators. And acceptor region or operator region is that region where the regulator proteins will come and bind, which will influence the transcription process. Now the third region is called as the cistronic region, which contains the actual gene which will provide the information for transcription to produce mRNA. So it is that part which will later code for the protein, or it is that part which codes for the actual protein. That is why it is called as a structural gene, where the information is hidden for the synthesis of the protein. Now the last region, which is called as the terminator region. The terminator region provides the stop signal for the end of transcription. Now coming to the cistronic region again, there is a difference in the arrangement of a cistron or the organization of cistron in eukaryotes and prokaryotes. In eukaryotes, there is only a single cistron, or it is monocistronic. That means for one structural gene, there will be separate promoter, operator, terminator, etc. Whereas in prokaryotes, it is polycistronic. That means many structural genes will share the same promoter, operator, terminator, etc. So prokaryotes, it is polycistronic, whereas in eukaryotes it is monocistronic. That means there will be, for each cistron, functional regions will be unique for each structural gene. That is, there will be promoter, operator and terminator for each structural gene in a eukaryote, whereas in prokaryotes, many structural genes will share the same promoter, operator and terminator assembly. In prokaryotic mRNA, the same mRNA will code for the synthesis of protein alpha, protein beta and protein gamma, as you can see in the figure. Whereas in eukaryotic mRNA, there will only be one structural gene which will code for a single protein or a single polypeptide. So that is why it is stressed that the prokaryotic mRNAs are usually polycistronic and the eukaryotic mRNAs are always monocistronic. Now we will proceed towards the 3 steps in transcription. They are initiation, elongation and termination. So the first step is called as initiation. During initiation, the enzyme, which is known as the DNA dependent RNA polymerase, it will recognize a specific site in the promoter region. This region is called as a recognition site. So with the help of the recognition site, this RNA polymerase, it will come and associate with the promoter region of the gene. From this promoter region, from this recognition site, it will move on to the binding site in the promoter region. Afterwards, it will proceed to the acceptor region and finally to the initiation site in the cistronic region. And the transcription virtually begins at the initiation site. So during initiation, the RNA polymerase, it will first come and recognize the recognition site, from where it will move on to the binding site in the promoter region, from where it will go to the acceptor region in the case of eukaryotes. In the case of prokaryotes, it will move to the regulator region or the operator region. From there, it will move to the initiation site where transcription virtually begins. In the case of prokaryotes, it can be seen that the RNA polymerase is also associated with a factor which is called as the sigma factor. It is also a transcription factor that assists the RNA polymerase in the transcription process in the case of prokaryotes. Now, in eukaryotes, there are 3 types of RNA polymerases. They are RNA polymerase 1, 2 and 3. Polymerase 1 transcribes rRNA genes. Polymerase 2 transcribes the protein coding genes, or it will transcribe in the mRNA, and polymerase 3 transcribes tRNA genes. So here here in our study we can focus on the RNA polymerase 2, which will transcribe the protein coding genes. So anyway, this RNA polymerase, it will come and bind to the initiation site in the gene. In prokaryotes, it is associated with sigma factor. In eukaryotes, there are other transcription factors which are associated with this RNA polymerase. Now, the binding of the RNA polymerase with the promoter region, it will lead to the local unwinding of DNA, or there will be separation of the companion strands of the DNA duplex in that transcriptome. So we can see the formation of a bubble in that region, which we can call as the transcription bubble. So as the RNA polymerase comes and binds to the promoter region, or it will come and bind to the initiator region, we can see that it will promote, or it will trigger the formation of the transcription bubble by the unwinding of the DNA strands in that region, and that region is called as the, or that bubble is called as the transcription bubble. So this is all about initiation. Next step is elongation. Elongation is actually that step where mRNA is being formed, or it is the formation of, or it is the polymerization of RNA chain. So how can RNA chain be synthesized? By the addition of ribonucleotides. So while RNA polymerase moves along the template strand, it will read on the information in the template and adds complementary ribonucleotides one by one. So when these complementary ribonucleotides are added one by one, it will lead to the formation of an RNA chain, and the RNA chain keeps growing as the RNA polymerase moves forward. So here the monomers are who will act as the raw material for the, or who will act as the ingredient for the synthesis of RNA, the ribonucleotide phosphates. And the ribonucleotide phosphates are in the form of triphosphates. There will be adenine trinucleotide phosphate, then guanidine trinucleotide phosphate, cytidine trinucleotide phosphate, and uridine trinucleotide phosphate. So they are all ribonucleotide phosphates in triphosphate form, and they are added one by one, complementary to the template DNA strand. So the adjacent nucleotides are linked together through energy-rich ester bonds. Because I already told you that the raw materials are nucleotide triphosphates. So the terminal bonds of nucleotide triphosphates are cleaved or hydrolyzed, and this releases energy. And that is how the energy is made available for the polymerization process. So as the polymerization proceeds, there will be elongation of the mRNA chain, or it starts growing. Now we come to the direction of chain elongation. From the figure we can see that the RNA polymerase, it will move through the template strand from 3-5' direction. Because the template strand, the RNA polymerase moves through the template strand in the 3-5' direction. But the RNA molecule is formed in the 5-3' direction. It is an exact copy of the non-template strand, except that the thymine is replaced by uracil, and deoxyribonucleotide is replaced by ribonucleotide. So although the RNA polymerase traverses the template strand from the 3-5' direction, the newly formed RNA is formed in the 5-3' direction. So it is said that the chain elongation always occurs in the 5-3' direction. So that is all about elongation. Elongation proceeds in the 5-3' direction. That is, the new mRNA chain is formed in the 5-3' direction, but the RNA polymerase moves in the 3-5' direction through the template strand. Now the last step in transcription is termination. In termination, the RNA polymerase reaches the termination codon in the terminator region. So there will be a codon in the gene which will code for the stoppage of mRNA synthesis. So that is called as the termination codon. The enzyme or the RNA polymerase will recognize the termination codon and it accordingly stops moving beyond it. In prokaryotes, there is a factor or a protein which is called as the terminator protein or the Rho factor. It is this protein which will bring the enzyme to stop at the terminator codon. It is postulated that it will first recognize the termination codon and then there it will bind with the enzyme, further blocking it from moving onwards. So the Rho factor comes into play and blocks the RNA polymerase from further moving forward. Now what happens? The RNA polymerase will now detach from the DNA template. Soon the RNA transcript will also separate from the DNA template and forms a single-stranded linear chain. And this linear chain is called as the mRNA. But it is only a precursor mRNA or a pre-mRNA. Now, why this is called as a pre-mRNA? So, this question is relevant to eukaryotic cells, where the eukaryotic genes, they are interrupted. That means they contain two types of regions, the introns and the exons. They both are nucleated sequences within a gene. Introns are non-coding regions, whereas the exons are the coding regions. But once transcription occurs, the mRNA formed will be exactly complementary to the DNA template. So the mRNA which is first formed will be having both intronic regions and exonic regions. So before forwarding to protein synthesis or before forwarding to the next step known as translation, the non-coding intronic regions from mRNA are to be removed. This mechanism is called as splicing. So the introns are removed by RNA splicing and this technique is called as RNA maturation. That means why these are removed? Otherwise, if splicing doesn't occur, these intronic regions will also be there in the protein product, which will lead to the formation of a defective protein. So, before the mRNA proceeds to the translation step, the introns are to be removed and the exons are to be covalently bonded to one another to create a mature mRNA. So, this is called as post-transcriptional modification. So, the presence of intronic regions in the gene calls for a modification of the mRNA before it is transported to the cytoplasm, and this process is called as post-transcriptional modification. And apart from this removal of intronic regions, which is apparently called as splicing, there are two more steps. So we will have a look at the steps. 3 processing steps in the post-transcriptional modification of mRNA. Why it is called post-transcriptional modification? Because it is the modification of mRNA that occurs after transcription and that takes place in eukaryotes. So the first step is a capping at the 5' end. So at the 5' end of the mRNA, a cap is added. What is this cap? It is a 7-methyl guanosine molecule which is added at the 5' end of the mRNA. This 7-methyl guanosine cap will protect the 5' end of the mRNA from degradation by the action of nucleases, because it is by the mediation of nucleases that splicing will occur. Removal of intronic regions will occur. So this mRNA has to be protected from the action of these nucleases. For that, a cap is added. So this 7-methyl guanosine cap will act as a protector from degradation by nucleases, and it also helps to position the mRNA correctly on the ribosome during protein synthesis, because ribosomes are the sites of protein synthesis where proteins are being synthesized from the information which is coded in the mRNA. So that is why the 7-methyl guanosine cap is added. Now the second step is the addition of a tail. This tail is called as the poly A tail, and that is being added to the 3' end. So for this, the 3' end of a eukaryotic mRNA is first trimmed, and then an enzyme will come into action. The name of the enzyme is adenylic acid transferase. It will add a tail-like region to the 3' end of mRNA, and this tail will contain about 200 adenine nucleotides. So that is why it is called as the poly A tail. And why is this poly A tail added? Because it plays a role in the efficient translation of the mRNA, as well as it adds to the stability of the mRNA. So now a cap and tail is added to the mRNA transcript. And the cap and tail on an mRNA are also indications that the mRNA is complete, that the mRNA is not defective. So they will act like flags which show that the mRNA is now complete. Now the third step is splicing. In splicing, the introns are removed. For this, it is not a single enzyme that works, but there will be a complex of proteins which will join, associate to form a structure which is called as a spliceosome. So the spliceosome is made up of proteins and small RNAs which are associated to form protein RNA enzymes. They are called small nuclear ribonucleoproteins or SNRPs. Small nuclear ribonucleoproteins which are abbreviated as SNRPs. So they form protein RNA enzymes which form a complex called as the spliceosome. So it acts as the splicing machinery. And the splicing machinery should be able to recognize the junctions where the introns are to be cut out. That means they should identify the junction where an exon ends and where the next exon starts. So that region is to be removed. So it should recognize the end of each exon and the start of the next exon. In the middle, there will be the intron which is to be removed. So the introns are to be cut out and the exons are to be joined. And how are the exons joined? The exons are joined with the help of an enzyme which is called as the RNA ligase. So that is also associated with the machinery. So this technique is known as the post-transcriptional modification of mRNA. Now, before proceeding to the next step of protein synthesis called as translation, these mRNAs which are now in the nucleus are to be transported to the cytoplasm because translation takes place in the cytoplasm. So in eukaryotic cells, this is true to eukaryotic cells where there is a distinct nucleus. So in eukaryotic cells, the mature RNAs are transported from the nucleus to the cytoplasm. But it is not transported as such as a mature RNA, but it is converted to a complex with certain proteins and they form ribonucleoproteins. So the mRNAs are transported from the nucleus to the cytoplasm as complexes with proteins which are called as the ribonucleoproteins. This complexing is very essential because it is these associated proteins which facilitate the transport of mRNA from the nucleus to the cytoplasm through the nuclear pores. And they also provide additional protection to mRNAs from enzymatic breaks. And usually the mRNA will bind with a protein which is called as the informophore. And on reaching the cytoplasm, the mRNA informophore complex binds with some other cytoplasmic proteins and forms an informosome. So now the mRNA is fully mature when it reaches the cytoplasm. And this mRNA this informosome or the mRNA informophore complex now binds with many ribosomes together to form a structure called as the polysome. It is there where the protein synthesis occurs. You can see the mRNA chain which is associated to several ribosomes in a linear array, and that is called as the polysome. And it is in the polysome configuration that protein synthesis occurs. And you can see that mRNA, the whole mRNA chain is associated to several ribosomes, and from each ribosome you can see the polypeptide chain or the new polypeptide chain being newly synthesized. So this structure where there is an mRNA connected to several ribosomes is called as the polysome. So this finishes the initial step of protein synthesis, which is called as gene transcription.